I've come to a point in my life where my mom is trying to tell me all those family secrets I was too young to understand. Every weekend or so, we have these long talks. It was a bit off putting at first, but I eventually came to value the anecdotes and lessons she gave me. They had the feel of bedtime stories, really, only the protagonists were now my family and people I knew. The implications of the events were very real, and the effects ranged from anger, laughter, to nostalgia. Nostalgia. That's what I first felt when we talked about the old house. That building which has seen many changes in ownership and purpose. That building which has always closed and evacuated exactly after 10 p.m. That building with an old rusty plaque that dates back to 1810. That building was where I lived for most of my childhood. When I found out that many locals thought it was a haunted place, I was confused. My days as a child roaming its halls and corridors, whose heights were unlike any house I'd ever seen, were quite normal and fun to me. I had no memory whatsoever of anything paranormal taking place, not even the classic friend that was but a product of my imagination thing. Doubtful and sometimes mocking faces were the reaction to my uneventful experience. I had just ignored the matter, up until my mom brought it up at one of our talks. Did anything strange ever happen to you or my brothers? Nothing ever happened to me. That was my first question. And then my mom started from the very beginning. We arrived at the old house when I was about 6. Mom had truly struck a good deal. We could get to live in the ground floor of this massive, 2-storied, beautiful house and pay a small rent if we agreed to help the cleaning lady with the first floor once a month. Maybe it was too good a deal to be true. The owners did not care to mention it, but others warned Mom of the danger. The house was feared. Hair being pulled by an invisible hand, footsteps on the upper floor, knocks on windows whose maker never showed up, stuff out of place and the like. Those were boringly common tropes about haunted old places, and people loved to talk even when they never visited the place themselves, my mom thought. So, she decided to take the offer, although not without a certain degree of dread. But as papers were being signed and furniture being moved, something happened. A neighbour, an old lady that had, as my mom vividly recalled, the habit of looking behind you when talking to you, said, "You'd best be mindful of the girl. She's a devilish one. No two ways about it." And then the neighbour told the tale of a little girl that was buried within one of the walls of the house. Apparently, she had an accident, and, as a weird custom had it, she was made part of the building, so as to make it stronger. As far-fetched as it seemed, my mom took note, perhaps out of fear for this crone-looking figure. But I believe it was mainly due to her strong instinct to protect the family now that Dad took off and ran. It occurred just a day before we slept for the first time at the old house. My mom went to the building all by herself, directly to what would be our washing room. She faced the wall inside of which this girl was supposedly lying. She said a prayer out loud, and then she whispered straight to the white, now turned yellow, peeled off surface. "We mean you no harm. We just want to live here like a true family, so please don't do anything to hurt us." After that, she left our fanciest platter with some candy before the decaying wall, as well as a couple of votive candles. Our very first days at the old house have disappeared in the midst of our memories. If anything scary ever happened, it would have had to be minor so as to be eclipsed by all the great times we had. My mum always kept the girls' platter full of candies and desserts. Whenever she bought or baked something sweet, a bit of it went on the platter. Who would have imagined that I had to share with a ghostly presence? And that seemed to be the end of the otherworldly chapter. But as we reminisced about the important things that transpired at those 6 or 7 years we spent at the house, weird anecdotes started to come to my mum's memory. Since the old house was quite large, it became sort of a hotspot for both my mom's and my big brother's friends. We could have these big, albeit chill parties every month or so. This always seemed strange to my mom. The house was well known for its paranormal happenings, so it would follow that but a few people would want to come visit. Despite that, as I clearly remember, they did want to, and badly so. I personally like to think the ambience we created was usually strong enough to ward off any presence with ill intent. At any rate, on one occasion my brother threw a party in his own living room. Yes, the building actually had an entirely separate and independent small wing. It was late at night, dudes and gals were dancing to my brother's DJ skills, but then someone came near to talk to him. It was a friend of his, and he claimed to have seen a kid using the rusty, creaking swing that was beyond my brother's place. He went to take a look from the window. The structure of the contraption could be barely made out. Indeed, the seat was moving to the constant creaks, but it was empty. My brother went out to the empty lot I used as a playground during the day. I was completely enclosed by tall, abandoned buildings, so at night the place looked as dark as some beast's throat. He called out to me. No answer was made, and the creaking slowly halted, so he decided to go look for me in my mom's wing, the main wing of the house. Once inside, my mom ran into him, and he told her that the empty lot was a dangerous place for a kid to play at night. She was weirded out. "Dear, your little brother has been sleeping in his room since your friends arrived." He could not believe it. Together they went to pay a visit to my room, to which I answered with the kind of snoring one gets from sleeping too hard. "Then who was that kid my friend saw at the swing? I saw the thing moving on its own, I swear." Needless to say, the party moved to the main wing, away from the beast's throat and lit with those really old, beautiful lamps my mom still keeps around. A kid? It gave me goosebumps, although my curiosity was piqued. But did you yourself ever see this kid? Again, she told me she didn't see anything at all, but she did start to remember the time an aunt of hers came by to the old house when we were away. Now, the main entrance to the house has practically stayed as it was during my childhood, a big two-piece black metal gate that was opened using a remote. It was how cars came to a narrow garden and then entered the garage. The gates had a mail netting at the bottom, and it reached low enough for anyone to clearly see the feet of a few people standing nearby at either side. It was a cool feature. As a kid, I liked to try and spot whoever dared to use the doorbell. This very doorbell was no doubt relentlessly pressed by one of my mom's aunts at a certain date. Apparently, she wanted to ask urgently about a piece of gossip. A pair of feet wearing kid shoes greeted her through the netting some minutes in. "Hi dear, is your mom home?" The voice of an infant gave a sharp no. "Well then, would you mind letting me in? I'll wait for her. When is she coming back?" In a hard to describe tone, the person on the other admitted that he didn't know. "I'm locked up. I'm all alone. My mother left me here and I can't get out." The woman felt pity for his grandniece and decided to stay put with him until his mother came home. After a few more minutes, it happened. My mom arrived in her old crimson Cherokee. She gave a honk when she saw her aunt, and they both entered the old house. Mom started to unload the groceries while her aunt talked to her. "How could you leave your son like that, all alone? He was very sad. Guess he went into the house." Mom suddenly stopped and frowned. "What are you talking about? He was with me all along." The trunk opened, and there I was, playing with some toys. My grandaunt was incredulous, so she grabbed me by the hand and touched my face, getting more and more pale by the second. She started to babble. It's you. It's really you. You are here." We all went to the living room, but then I left to do something else. My mom told me that it took a couple of chocolates to get her aunt out of the shock. Of course, she now never dared to go even close to the old house. And soon, all of our relatives followed suit. These are the most prominent stories my mom told me. Many other things happened, but they very much more cliché and rather short. But, according to my mom and the friends who were involved, they did happen. And As if that wasn't enough, you've got some facts. The old house has never been again used as a house. Only businesses have set up shop, but a lot of them have left rather quickly. Nowadays, there's a restaurant bar, although I've heard stories that point to something weird taking place. At 9 pm, all patrons are asked to leave, even during weekends. That's right, keep in mind that most businesses of their kind make a lot of their profit during these crucial hours. A friend of the family had this evacuation happen to him, to which he asked why. One of the waiters told him that they all left the building before 10 pm, because of the terrifying things that occurred after. Apart from that, let's not forget that the house is at least 200 years old or so. A faded plaque at the front says that the building is meant to honour some local cavalry unit of the Independence War. Frankly, I don't know what to think of all this. Maybe I should just let it go, as it really doesn't bother me, and I can't remember anything weird happening to me. Nonetheless, I'm about to start an important chapter in my life, one that may take me away from my hometown and friends for a long time. Wouldn't it be nice if I could look more into this, so as to indulge in a bit of nostalgia and just maybe begin a journey of self-discovery? It is also intriguing to know why it is that all close relatives, meaning mum, my brother, my sister and myself, didn't have anything bad or scary happen directly to us. Is it because of the ritual my mom did regularly? What about the playful boy and the girl that was supposedly buried within one of the walls? Shortly after my son turned 2, but before he could talk well enough to understand, he would run out of his own room, slam the door and wouldn't go back in. He would just point and say gum gum, like an exaggerated swallowing noise. Took us a few months to figure out what it was he was so afraid of, and I made a point not to tell his mother what I thought it was until she came to the same conclusion. We agreed we had a resident spooky boy. My son used to talk about him on a daily basis and wouldn't play in his room or want to sleep in there. We decided to burn sage and smudge the room and the rest of the apartment while he was at daycare. The next day, he started playing in his room. Eventually, I got my son to work up the confidence to say, "Go away," when he saw him or was afraid. He'd always let us know by pointing and saying its name to let us know it was around. During COVID, my estranged father came up from Texas and started staying with us. A few weeks in, he asked me what about my son was talking about when he'd say gum gum, and that he was talking about punching gum gum. I told him that it was my son's imagination, to which he replied, "I don't think he's imagining that, buddy." My son can clearly communicate now, and rarely brings him up anymore. I've pressed him for details like what does he look like, where he lives, etc. My son says he still lives in the ceiling in his room, but he doesn't come around. And says he's scary, but nice. My dad always said that if he ever died in the apartment, he'd whoop his ass for scaring our son. He contracted COVID and ultimately succumbed to the disease in December. I keep his urn in my son's bedroom, and Gum Gum hasn't been around since. We have a semi-rural house, which is very dark and quiet at night. I lived there for 2 years. I was frequently alone, and I never heard or felt a thing. I moved an hour away for work, and my youngest son moved into the master bedroom. His girlfriend is there most of the time too. So, they started telling me a while back that they were hearing things. Footsteps in the hall, knocking on the wall in the bedroom. I honestly thought they were imagining it, although my son is the epitome of show me proof or it's not real. I had a car accident recently and stayed at the house for a while. Sleeping in the spare room one night, reading a book, and I heard footsteps. Something moving up and down the hall. I've always been one just to get up and check something, but this froze me. I was terrified and absolutely certain that the door was about to open. Just thinking about it makes my heart race. My son's girlfriend is a realtor, so she did some research to see if there's anything about the house, and there's nothing. My ex's brother died in a car accident at 18. and we've all seen flashes of him, but this feel malevolent, or at best, not friendly. So this happened 2 years ago to me and my older brother. A while back, we were living in our mum's house, who was gone due to work-related stuff, but our aunt, our cousins and her boyfriend lived with us. Well, not long after they found their own house and left, so it was just us two, and sometimes our grandma was there, and we were in our mid-teens, so we were capable of handling ourselves. Now time for the story. It was a regular night. I was in our living room while my brother was in the room. We didn't have cable, but we had internet, so I would hook up my laptop to the TV and play Hulu. Well, the episode was over, so I got to click from the next one when I saw it. It was a pitch black figure peeking over the corner in our hallway. I stood still, not knowing what to do, but started backing up when finally it just left. I was scared, but I didn't tell my brother, so I continued to watch TV. 5 minutes later, my brother comes out of his room scared, and I ask what's wrong, and he says, I just saw two small black figures peeking from the corner of the hallway, looking at me. My stomach just dropped. I explained to him that I just saw something just like that a few minutes ago. We stayed together the rest of that night, and nothing else happened. However, there was something that I didn't realise until I was getting ready for bed. He said two small figures, almost kid-like. The one I saw was mid-height, like an average adult. Did we see a parent and two kids? As of right now, we're out of that house back with our mom, and luckily, no ghost. So back in childhood, when my brother was maybe 6 or 7, he would make claims of seeing weird people. It was pale grey, long fingers, and just looked like he was decaying. It wasn't until he got older he assumed it was a ghost or something, but he never saw it again. Well, it wasn't over. My cousin, who was 5, said she was scared because she saw somebody outside the other day. Of course, as the big cousins me and my brother asked her what she saw, and what she said was the following. He looked grey, had long fingers, and his skin looked weird. My brother and I each gave each other a look we did. Told her not to worry, it was nothing, and luckily she didn't see it again. But the thought still haunts us. Was it the same guy my brother saw when he was a kid? And if so, how long has it been with us? Do you think it was the same guy or some ghost who just copied a memory or something? One day, I was awake around 1 AM and my cousin, who is my aunt's oldest, 7 years old, woke up. She cuddled in the blanket next to me and watched TV with me. I ended up going to the bathroom, so as I got up, she grabbed my arm and practically begged me not to leave. I told her don't worry, I'll be quick. I come back out a minute later and she was hid under the blanket. I took it off her head and she had tears coming down and pointed at the window. We were in the living room, so the window was to our front patio. I went to look and saw nothing, so I laid next to her and we fell asleep, but the story's not over. The next day, my brother and I, along with my cousins, went to see my mom and her boyfriend. We explained the weird stuff, and they gave us sage, I believe it was, and I told them about what happened with my cousin. My mom's boyfriend tried asking her what she saw, and she whispered into his ears, but just started bawling in tears. I was heartbroken. We asked what she said, but apparently she barely started talking when she ended crying. We never brought it up with her, fearing she will cry again. She's 9 now, and I feel like I want to ask her, but she saw if she even remembers. The one thing that made me more sad was she begged me not to leave, but I still went, and she had to see what she saw alone, and scared, luckily, we're all out of that house. I am part of a paranormal team in Northern Ireland called Northwest Paranormal Research. We visit haunted locations all over the island of Ireland. But this one is probably the worst of all. We parked the cars about 500 feet from the actual house. We walked up a bit of the road, then up the lane where, at the time, was all lined with a dense forest. We go inside the run-down old cottage. No power or anything there. We set up our gear. A locked-off camera and a microphone in each of the 3 rooms. We settle down in the centre room, where the open fireplace is. I have my laptop running, recording from all the microphones. So, we settle down and do some EVPs. 3-minute bursts. In a few, we get what we think are replays, but on amplifying it, sounds like animals around the house. Around 11:30, we're all sitting on our chairs having a break, coffee and sandwiches, when we hear a loud this from the bedroom beside us. We all jump and run in. With all the torches on, we look around to see what we could have made such a noise. But there's nothing of such a weight to do so. So in our heads, we're all thinking, it's all going to kick off now. But it doesn't. Not for another 20 minutes. It gets cold, and I mean Arctic cold. We can see our breath, yet the ambient temperature is 8 degrees Celsius. We hear little ticks, like someone throwing rice or something at us, but we can't see anything. We have 2 night vision cameras, and there's nothing showing up on those either. Then, from the laptop, we can see spikes in the audio, but we can't actually hear anything with our ears. There's definitely something going on, but we can't nail it down. Then Simeth hears somebody calling her name being whispered into her ear. Then I hear mine. But we have no recorded evidence of this, despite having all the tech with us. We pull out a small table and a glass to do divination. And no, this is not like a Ouija board, this is a simpler form of communication. As we have our fingers on the glass, we ask out, is there anyone out there who will or would like to communicate? The glass immediately starts to swing violently about the table. We ask for the glass to stop, but it doesn't. We decide that it's getting a bit too intense, so we pack up and decide to leave. On our way down from the lane, we were just chatting amongst ourselves about the goings on. As we cross the ditch at the bottom, I hear these chilling words roared at me right into my ear. Never return. We haven't been back since. Other people have and experienced bad things, but we will never return. So it's the year 2000. My parents just had my little sister, and we were in need of a house with an extra bedroom. We find a decent house in a good neighbourhood, and the place seems pretty relaxed. The basement was always a weird place for me though. I always felt like there was someone else down there, watching. The first time I actually saw something, I wasn't alone. My sister, 3 friends and myself were in the basement watching Jurassic Park. Our parents were upstairs in the kitchen playing cards. During the movie, the power cut out. Something small and white comes creeping out from beside the couch we're all sitting on. It resembled a crawling baby. I just remember staring at it, trying to figure out what I was seeing. I was terrified. After a moment of pause, it fucking hissed at us. And then boom, lights were back on and we started screaming. We ran upstairs to our parents and explained what just happened. Of course, they didn't believe us. Honestly, I probably wouldn't have either. From that point on, things became more frequent and pronounced. Regular occurrences included creaking stairs at night, having a feeling of dread or panic in the downstairs bathroom. For our guests, seriously, people were freaked out being in there. Feeling something behind you in the basement and kitchen, things being misplaced after using them, hearing loud whispers directly in my ear that would wake me up at night. This is the reason I still sleep with the covers over my ears at age 26. Seeing things moving in peripheral vision, and super cold spots throughout the house. Years of experience, and my parents never believed me about any of them. Fast forward to 2017, and I'm moving in with my boyfriend with the help of our friends. Our friend Ali makes a sudden realization that she's not only been to my parents' house before, but that her best friend's family were the previous owners of the home. Weird coincidence, right? Buckle up, y'all. So, moving day has come and gone. The buds all get together to hang out. Myself, Ali, and another friend are discussing weird childhood experiences when I began talking about the aforementioned baby-like being from the basement. Ali starts tearing up and insists that she needs to text her best friend to clarify something. After getting her reply, she turned to me. "Hey, do you happen to remember the last name of the family that lived in your house?" "Yeah, last name." Now she's actually crying and visibly shaken. Then she told me why. Turns out, the previous family had been expecting another child, and unfortunately, it was stillborn. Hearing that was probably the most surreal moment of my life. When I called my parents to tell them what I found out, and to prove I wasn't crazy all these years, their skeptic selves literally had nothing to say other than, "That's definitely weird." So yeah, there's finally some validity to my claims, and I don't really feel good about it. TLDR, my friends and I saw the ghost of a baby in my parents' house, and it turned out that the previous owners had a stillborn while living there. When I was about 11 or 12, my two friends and I had the great idea of playing with a Ouija board. The rest of the night was a mess. Before I explain what happened, here's a little backstory on the board we used. The board belonged to my sister, Dee, of one of the friends involved in this story. While she and a friend were using it, the board was put away without saying goodbye first. Whatever was talking to them that day freaked Dee's friend out enough to pretty much throw the board back into the box and close it up. I did some reading, and apparently, ending a Ouija board conversation without saying goodbye can result in something either latching onto you or the board itself. We were stupid enough to use the same board. My friend Eri was invited to spend the night at my house. Being the little badasses that we thought we were, we decided we'd play with the Ouija board. Our friend Ryan lived across the street from me, so we called him to join us. We started playing and asked if there was anyone with us, if they wanted to tell us their name. The planchette spelled out Andree. Okay, cool. My middle name. At this point, I was sure that Eri was messing with me. YOUMUSTRUN. Just remembering and writing that gave me the chills. So obviously, we're pretty much done. And talking to spirits and saying goodbye. Nope the fuck out. Decided we'd go across the street back to Ryan's. At the time, the property behind his house was vacant, and a small chain link fence was the only thing keeping us from exploring. So we did. Eri's always had great intuition, and when she says we need to go, it's time to go. She started to feel uneasy being in the vacant backyard and returned to the other side of the fence. I followed. There was a growing tension in that yard. Suddenly, we both got a feeling that something bad is going to happen. We start yelling for Ryan to come back over, but he thought we were freaking out over nothing. We finally convinced him to come back and started helping him over the fence to speed things up. We were chunky kids. Eri and I each had a grip on either of his arms when we suddenly felt a lot of resistance. Ryan's hood was being pulled back by something unseen, and he was audibly gasping for air. I don't know if one of us reached to grab his hood while the other pulled him over, but we managed to get him back onto his property, and he could finally breathe. He was disturbed and just wanted to go back in his house for the night. Eri and I parted ways with him and went back to my house for our sleepover. We talked about what had happened, but since we were kids, the situation was now funny and cool. It wasn't. Due to my past issues with sharing a bed with someone, I slept on the floor and gave her my bed. When I woke up in the morning, I had 3 long scratches on both sides of my pelvis waist. I'd slept alone. Eri couldn't have done it. It looked like deep cat scratches, but my cat was declawed, not my choice. I had never scratched myself like that. It never happened again, but it's something I still think about to this day.